We're always working on new and innovative things.
Hi everyone, joining us today is Jim Hyslop, Director of Project Development at Robert Allan, Naval Architects and Marine Engineers. Thanks for joining me today, Jim.
Hi Greg, thanks for inviting me.
I know Robert Allan has always been an early adopter of technology and also one of SSI's oldest partners, been with us since the early 90s. You've been with Robert Allan yourself for almost 30 years now. What was the technology situation like when you first started?
Well, actually, I was one of the people that got started on that original ShipCam program. So that was actually very interesting technology for us in those days. We had AutoCAD. We used a program called AutoShip at the time to do our lines fairing. And we used ShipCam quite a bit in our early days, and those days primarily to create developed surfaces that we could then use that surface and create a lines plan from it and give that to the shipyard. So when we gave it to the shipyard, they had some reasonable expectation that it would be developable. So that was very early days of that process. Yeah. And that was in the early 90s. That's correct.
And at that time, I think there was still a bit of apprehension about more digital technologies, about getting them to work. And was there any of that at Robert Allan? Was there kind of a risk of things going wrong?
Well, things didn't always work the way that you had hoped, but we were definitely very proactive. We were very supportive of the technology at the time. We had a good relationship with Rolf Oder at the in those days, and that continued on. And I think we were pretty excited to be almost a test bed for a lot of this software, and because we definitely. Part of our design process is that we like to stay at the forefront of technology. We like to stay at the forefront of software developments. Anything that's new and shows promise that comes along, we're willing to try it. And we were certainly willing to try the ShipCam software, and we really enjoyed working with it, actually, and it did some really good things for us, and we were very excited about it. So yeah, we're glad we stuck with it.
How has the software implementations and the technology you use at Robert Allan evolved since then? What were you doing 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and where are you now?
Well, everything's just got a lot easier. We do a lot of 3D modeling now in programs like Rhino, and there's good interaction, interchangeability, file interoperability between those programs. We use Rhino a lot to do 3D modeling, and then that gets exported into finite element models and CFD models and things like that. So we're doing a lot more 3D design now. We're trying to implement the whole package, so to speak, in terms of software and a design itself, rather than having multiple models and multiple software suites, which does become a little difficult to manage at times. But we're definitely making some progress there.
Yeah. Can you expand a bit about what you mean by the whole package? So, yeah.
There's several different aspects to a design when we design a ship. There's the hull form, the surface itself, and then there's the structure that goes inside of it. Then there's all the mechanicals that surround that, the engines, the cooling systems. The structure itself needs to be analyzed because particularly on some things like tugs that have very highly loaded localized areas, we have to do some very careful analysis of those areas. Things like cranes and winches and things like that all need some very detailed structural analysis. So there's a variety of different things that we need to do in the process, and in the past, we have had to use different softwares and different models, like different but different digital models for all these different software platforms. But we're seeing a little bit more integration in that respect.
So yeah, you've been part of this digital revolution within the company, but what's been the largest impact on the organization? Is it just the use of 3D? Is it this integration now where everything's kind of easier to work together?
Yeah, what it enables us to do is really dive in and do an in-depth, detailed analysis of certain things, and to look at different aspects of the design that allow us to optimize a little better. So we can look at some structure, we can analyze it, and we can look at different things and figure out a way that works with the client's needs for what they want to do. So I'm going to say that's probably the main thing there, and that applies to a variety of different software platforms, all of them that we do. The structure, the hydrodynamic analysis, all of these different things.
Is there any recent project where you guys used something new or innovative, and maybe you learned something or you discovered something that didn't work as well as you expected?
Do you mean in terms of the software or the design itself?
Technology, or maybe a design with the ship, maybe something you're trying to implement within the design?
We're always working on new and innovative things. Like we're refining our designs every day. Every day something. We have a look at another aspect of the design and try to refine it. Some of our designs, the base designs have been around for 20 odd years, but they've been refined over the years and very carefully analyzed and optimized. We're always looking at things like greener technologies for ships, alternate fuels, electricity, hybrids, LNG propulsion, that type of thing. We're looking at better hull forms to make tugs safer, more stable, more fuel efficient. So there's a variety of different aspects that we're looking at in terms of moving the designs forward.
Yeah, right now, electric propulsion and alternative fuels are such a hot topic, it seems like. And Ariel obviously has experience with both and for many years now. But we actually had a viewer kind of ask us a question about this, Michael Kentemich. Is there any clear indication what the future propulsion solution will be? Is there any kind of political drivers, or is there an existing infrastructure that's pushing you towards one direction or another?
Well, with regards to infrastructure, it's very dependent on the location. For example, here in the Northwest and in places like Norway, where we have a lot of hydroelectric power, that's a very clean, green type of power. So it does make sense to develop electric boats for places like this. We have done a lot of work. We've recently just been awarded a contract with Seaspan, a local operator, to develop an electric tug for BC. Whereas if you look at somewhere like Australia, their power sources electrically are a little different. They have some solar, but not enough really that's made enough of a footprint on the power source. They get a lot of their power from coal and gas, which doesn't make as much sense. There are a lot of alternate fuels, methanol and hydrogen and liquefied natural gas, LNG. Those types of fuels also are showing some promise. Ammonia is another one. There is quite a big push within, and I'm going to say both the regulatory side and also just the industry itself is trying to be greener. We're seeing what's happening in cars. Cars are obviously going very heavily down the electric path. Doesn't work as well in boats in all cases. So we are looking at alternate fuels. There's a lot of the engine manufacturers are looking at alternate fuels as well, just to try to reduce emissions.
And now looking forwards even more, what do you see as kind of a challenge for the business side of Robert Allan in terms of where both the industry is going and where you as a business want to grow?
Well, for us, it's a matter of staying on top of these technologies. There's always new technology coming out. Some of them work and some of them don't. We have to look at each one carefully, and we do pay attention to all of these trends. Right now we're doing some quite involved studies in these alternate fuels, methanol and ammonia, which I've mentioned. We've done a few boats that have been powered by liquefied natural gas. We're going to be doing a full electric boat quite soon. So that's really the challenge for us, is to keep abreast of these technologies, because it is advancing quite quickly, and we're assuming that one of these technologies will emerge as the primary driver of ships in the future, much in the way that diesel took over from steam and coal power. 100 years ago, the same thing we expect to happen. Diesel will be supplanted by some other type of fuel, some other type of energy source. We don't know yet what that is.
Do you think Robert Allan could be driving kind of the adoption of these technologies if you develop a ammonia propelled ship? Is that going to bring the demand?
We don't necessarily. That's not our core business. We don't. We're not in the energy. We're not developing alternate fuels. We work with the manufacturers of the engines. So we have good relationships with all of the major diesel engine manufacturers, and they are all actively pursuing these alternate fuel avenues, and we work with all of them to evaluate various aspects of that. How much fuel is needed? What's the physical size of the equipment, the weight, etc.? Does it fit into a ship? Does it make sense? How does that affect things like the vessel's layout? How does it affect the fuel economy? All of those types of things. So we're working with multiple manufacturers in that respect.
What would you say is the missing piece for a lot of design office strategies? You're saying that Robert Allan's very focused on innovation, on the technology. Is that what maybe some other design offices are missing?
I can't speak for other design offices. I can speak for ourselves, though, that I think that sets us apart. And it gives us, I think, an advantage in a lot of cases, because we have such a long history in innovation. Robert Allan himself, personally, is a very much an innovative, free-thinking type of person. That corporate philosophy has filtered down into a lot of people who work here now. And we do really try to look at things from a different perspective, I think, than perhaps some of the other designers.
And looking towards the future, what is on the horizon? I know you mentioned for the actual vessel designs, but in terms of the technology within the organization, what's on the horizon?
You mean in terms of actual design process?
Yeah, in terms of the process or
Right.
the kind of the innovations within the design office. We've seen some other organizations take advantage of VR, AR.
Yes, yeah, and that does, factor into some of the things that we've been doing. We design a lot of vessels that have tugs, for example, that have the need to have good visibility over the sides of the vessel so that they can come up to ships and things like that. So the VR aspect enables the master of the tug to be able to see where everything is on the boat before it gets built. So that is quite interesting from our perspective. Really, that's a bit more of a marketing tool in some ways. Really, what our focus is more on the engineering. We really like, this, as I was, mentioning before, integrated technology where the 3D model gets integrated and we can do more analysis, look at different things, and optimize it in that respect. So that's kind of where we're seeing things going, and we're always working on, for example, early on in the design process, looking at various structures and things like that, and how that affects the weight and the stability. Like we can do quick structure models and just quickly evaluate the structure and the weight of the ship and see how that's going to affect things going down the line.
When you're working with the shipyard and the designs being engineered and finally constructed, has the integration improved between you and the shipyard, or is it kind of a throw it over the wall and see what happens process still?
It depends on the shipyard. Some shipyards are definitely better than others. We have a very good working relationship with a few shipyards, a few in Turkey, a few in Asia. And those yards, we've been working with them for years, and we do get some feedback. Not as much as we'd like. Up until, let's say, a year ago, we were getting better at it because we would go to the yards a lot more than we used to do in the past. If you were to look back 20 years ago and the state of air travel and business travel in those days, we didn't do that many shipyard visits. But in the past, sort of decade or so, we really ramped up our interaction with the yards, going to the yards, seeing the tugs getting built, seeing the various vessels getting built, doing inspections, seeing what the shipyard procedures are, seeing what works and doesn't work for them. So that has improved quite a bit. Correct.
From your perspective, have shipyards embraced the digital twin, or is it still a kind of a higher level marketing type?
Again, some have and some haven't. I do think that some have definitely done that. Yes, certainly some of the higher tech yards in Turkey, particularly, they've done a very good job on some of those things. Yes.
Do you think it's important for kind of the future of the industry for every shipbuilding executive to agree on the value of the digital twin or the value of the digital thread, all these kind of high level technology concepts?
Definitely. I think it's undoubtedly going to be the way of the future. That you see it a lot in smaller objects. You see it in things like cars and things like that. I think you're going to see more and more of it in the shipbuilding industry. You certainly see it in things like the aircraft industry, aerospace. All of those industries have definitely embraced the 3D, digital model technology. Shipbuilding has been a little behind. As I say, some yards are better than others, but it's probably more the smaller ones, the smaller shipyards that maybe don't have the budget to really do it, but they're slowly getting there.
If you're working with a shipyard who hasn't really embraced the digital twin as much, embraced the digital technology as much, how do you mitigate that? What can you do on your end to make it easier for?
Well, we use the technology ourselves, so what we find is that we have to do a lot of the work for them, so to speak. Making sure that everything works in 3D, making sure that the plates are developable, that the structure is buildable, all of those types of things. So yeah, if the shipyard doesn't do it or can't do it, then we have to do it, and we're completely capable of doing, in a sense, acting as a shipyard's engineering office. If that's what the shipyard needs us to do, we can do that. Using ShipConstructor and various other technologies, we can give the shipyard all of the information that they need.
Well, thanks so much, Jim. I think that's about all the time we have for today.
Okay.
We've been seeing a lot of Robert Allan in the news recently with the Ever Given and the Suez.
Yeah.
Hopefully we see more Robert Allan tugs in the news, but maybe in a bit nicer circumstances.
I hope so, yes. We certainly do. Okay, thanks, Craig.
Thanks so much, Jim.
Okay, all right.